What's up, guys? This is Ray, and today let's discuss the 2019 American movie Godzilla, King of the Monsters, directed by Michael Daugherty. And it stars the ever so beloved icon of giant monster movies, Godzilla himself. And for those of you guys who don't know, I am a huge Godzilla fan. I've seen pretty much every Godzilla movie to be released, both from Japan and from the US, multiple times throughout the course of my life. So needless to say, I was pumped when this movie was announced, and I definitely checked it out in the theater opening weekend. And just for the record, I loved the 2014 Godzilla movie. The flaws aside, I thought it was a wonderful representation of what Godzilla was. It was definitely better than the Ronald Emmerich 90s American Godzilla. I think it was definitely a return to form. And so when they announced King of the Monsters was going to be featuring other iconic kaiju, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah, I was definitely on board. The story of Godzilla King of the Monsters, it's about this group of eco-terrorists, and they start to penetrate the different bases of Monarch, which if you've been following the 2014 Godzilla movie and Kong Skull Island, you'll know that Monarch is like this secret organization that monitors all these titans which are hidden throughout the globe. And these eco-terrorists, they infiltrate one of the bases of Monarch. They steal a Dr. Emma Russell and her daughter Madison, and they reveal their intention is to awaken all the titans all over the world and have them clean out humanity, because to them humanity is a virus which is dooming the world. And they figure that these titans are basically the Earth's way of curing this disease, kind of like the way you would produce antibodies to combat a virus within your own body. So they decided to free all these titans with the intent of cleaning out the human race and making the world better. But they set free this giant three-headed dragon by the name of Monster Zero, whom they eventually find out is actually referred to as Ghidorah. And so it's up to Monarch and, of course, our hero Godzilla to come out and save the day. So that's the gist of the story. And, just before I dive into my thoughts of Godzilla King of the Monsters, I'm just going to go quickly through non-spoiler thoughts first. I'll leave my spoiler thoughts towards the end of this video, because I think there is a lot to unpack. As a fan of this movie, there was a lot to be enjoyed, but I'll kind of dive into those spoilery thoughts towards the end of this video. Don't worry, I'll let you guys know. So when it comes to the positives of Godzilla King of the Monsters, simply put, the monster spectacle. Woo! It was good. Like, the CG was great. I think it was pretty equal to how it was featured in the 2014 Godzilla. But this time, in addition to Godzilla, we have King Ghidorah, we have Mothra, and we have Rodan. Three iconic kaiju. They've appeared in multiple films throughout Godzilla's long history of movies. And to see them come to life and kind of remixed and modernized for the Western audience, I thought was excellent. The redesigns, you had fire on the tip of Rodan's wings. You had Mothra with this more kind of this more vicious and sinister look, although Mothra pretty much keeps her personality that she had in the existing movie franchise the same. And then you have King Ghidorah, who's just as fearsome, if not more fearsome, than how he was ever portrayed in the Japanese movie series. And using the CG, they were able to bring to life these monsters in a way that you probably wouldn't be able to have done with traditional tokusatsu techniques. Like, they gave them so much more personalities, so much more mannerisms that they these are all added on. Like, for example, when you meet Ghidorah for the first time, he kind of rattles his tail when he meets Godzilla like a rattlesnake. And even the way Mothra moves around, the design of Mothra, when you first take a glance of it, she's kind of frightening at first, especially when she's in her larva form. But when she morphs into her imago form, then you get that same sense of awe as in the Japanese movies. And you even have Rodan. He has like this fire of some kind of volcanic action going on with its wings, and just that small detail was really cool. And when these monsters duke it out, it is tons of fun. I think, like, when you go back and watch some of the earlier Godzilla movies to feature these guys, of course the fights are fun, the spectacle is there, but there's something about the way it was animated on screen here that I think just tops all the Japanese movies off as far as pure action is concerned. And of course, we got to see a lot more of Godzilla, and not only Godzilla, but we also get to see all the other kaiju featured predominantly in the story. I think, when it comes to the 2014 Godzilla, you basically had Bryan Cranston and Aaron Taylor Johnson's characters at the center of the story, and it was featuring Godzilla. You only get a few scenes that actually feature Godzilla, but here it's pretty much dominant throughout the entire movie. And that is a change I am absolutely for, because of course a movie is called Godzilla. It should definitely feature more Godzilla than any other character, and that's what definitely this movie brings. And something that I really dug in this movie, especially compared to the way they do it in the Japanese movies, is I really like the world building in this movie. Like, this movie kind of more accurately portrays a world in which the way in which humans live with these titans or live with these kaiju. And I think the way the humans react to living a world with all these titans is a lot more realistic and a lot more believable than anything they've ever pulled out in the Japanese movie series. In the Japanese movies, the world knows the existence of these monsters, but they don't like ever live in fear. They kind of just live happily. The kids are all fans of Godzilla. They have toys and stuff like that. This is not all the movies. This is just generally speaking, but the way humans are in this movies, of course, when you have giant monsters roaming around, it's going to be a huge deal. And just the way humans talk about the existence of Godzilla and the other titans, especially the way it's portrayed in the news. And you had a little plot point in which Watanabe Ken and some of the monarch folks are in front of members of Congress. The way that humans actually react to living in a world full of kaiju is a lot more believable here than anything that's ever been portrayed in previous movies. And the music, on point. It was a perfect kind of revival of old classic Godzilla songs like Godzilla's March, Mothra's theme song. And the way it had all the melodies, all the tunes that were present in the original compositions, but it was all modernized and outfitted exclusively for this new take. And the timing of when they play the songs was amazing. Like, you had a scene when Godzilla rising out of water, and then with absolutely perfect timing, Godzilla March starts playing, and it's just hype-inducing. That was a really great reveal. And then when you hear Mothra's theme plays, that same sense of awe and wonder that you felt when you watched the original Japanese movies, it's the same here. And of course, this movie is loaded with tons of Easter eggs and callbacks to the past 65 years of Godzilla movies, a lot of which I'll get into in the spoiler part of this review. But if you are a hardcore Godzilla fan and you can pick up on all these callbacks and Easter eggs, it just makes the movie-going experience a lot better. Now, when it comes to the negatives of King of the Monsters, there are a few, but keep in mind, none of these negatives derail my overall opinion of this movie. But I've been watching and reading a lot of reviews that people have posted on King of the Monsters, and I agree with a lot of them, but it's not enough to make me feel like this is a bad movie. First of all, there's a whole discussion about the human element of this movie being, just being bad. I won't disagree that the human characters in this movie need a lot more work, especially when it comes to the dialogue. The dialogue was okay, and the motivations of a lot of these characters are very questionable, if not fleshed out enough. Like, you had one of the characters who in the first moments of the movie, you learned that she lost a child during Godzilla's a battle in San Francisco, and the way she kind of flips her motivations and becomes a key player amongst these ecotourists who are trying to overrun the world with titans, it just doesn't add up. And you get Charles Dance in this movie, who is an excellent villain, but he could have used a lot more time to flesh out who he is. But I assume with the way the story plays out that he'll probably have a bigger role in one or more movies further down the line. And I can see why people just didn't feel overall the family dynamic when it comes to the storytelling. This movie centers around a family. Like, you have mom and dad, who's played by Carl Chandler and Vera Farmiga, and you have the daughter Madison, who's played by Millie Bobby Brown. And I think the general consensus is that their story just kind of drags the story. And while I don't disagree, I didn't mind it as much, because I think, I believe the reason they added this family dynamic is to kind of, if you remember a lot of previous Godzilla movies from Japan, a lot of them, were made to connect with kids. So they did feature a lot of characters which were children and also, familial units. So I didn't mind their inclusion in the story. But do I think that their dialogue and the roles could use a little work? Yeah, I definitely think that, but I don't think they drag the story to the same degree as what everyone is making them out to be. But I think for me, the biggest negative with King of the Monsters is the absolute abundance of night fights, of night scenes. I understand that the usage of night scenes, especially when you have a story that heavily relies on CG, is useful because the darkness can hide the flaws created by bad to mediocre CG. I'm not saying the CG in Godzilla King of the Monsters was bad. I'm just saying that they shouldn't have to rely on night shots to make their CG look good. I mean, if you look at Kong Skull Island, most of those shots were done in the daytime, and it looked absolutely amazing. Kong Skull Island was a lot of fun, a lot of legit fun, big monster action, and it didn't need any night shots to hide its flaws. I think this movie could have done without those numerous night shots, and should have just gone all the way with other choices. But overall, what do I have to say about Godzilla King of the Monsters? It was dope. It was a lot of fun. I definitely liked it more than the 2014 Godzilla, and it's mainly because we spent a lot more time seeing Godzilla and the other kaiju just wreck things, and also just seeing the other kaiju on screen. You know, these are monsters which we all grew up with, which I grew up with, and seeing them kind of remixed to a point where it's different enough from the original designs that were predominant in the Japanese series, and at the same time very, you know, reminiscent of the original designs. You know, it just made watching them in action a lot more fun. And the way they were all represented, I thought everything was done with the utmost amount of justice. And like I said previously, personally, I didn't mind the weak human narrative in the story, because the way I see it is that, you know, Godzilla is the center stage of the story. You know, I think so long as the humans do stuff to bring Godzilla and the monsters together, then I don't mind a bad or weak human narrative. I mean, looking back through the other Godzilla movies in the franchise, there are a ton of times when the motivations and also just the writing of some of these human characters just were either weak or just didn't make any sense. And I think because we've experienced it all before, I was able to forgive all the flaws revolved around the human characters with this movie, and just kind of was able to sit back, relax, and enjoy this movie that pretty much felt like a legit Toho movie with a much bigger budget. And coming from me, I definitely recommend this movie. It's a lot of fun. As a giant monster movie fan who just wants to see giant monsters wreck each other, and, you know, for me, that was just 100% satisfying. And I want to take this time to dive into spoiler territory and talk about some of the fun Easter eggs and callbacks I thought were pretty dope within King of the Monsters. You know, first of all, I like the way each of these monsters' origins, or where you first meet these monsters. I love the locations they were set in. You know, you find Mothra in a cave behind a waterfall, and if you've seen a lot of Mothra's other appearances, usually you find Mothra inside a cave and most likely behind a waterfall. And even Rodan, you know, you find Rodan first inside a volcano, which is very reminiscent of the original Rodan movie, which, you know, you had the male and female Rodans kind of both coming out of this mountain and dying inside a volcano ultimately. And even King Ghidorah, like, when you first meet him, you know, he definitely feels different than the average Titan, you know, excluding Godzilla and Rodan and Mothra, of course, but he felt very different than the kind of Titans they were already teasing throughout Godzilla King of the Monsters. But then you find out he comes from outer space, he's of an extraterrestrial origin, and I like how they kept with that version of his origin, because he has a few origins in the original Japanese series. You have one origin where he comes from outer space, and you get another version where he's actually a mutated creature, you know, brought to life by the atomic bomb. And you get another origin where he's like this mutant brought to life by atomic bomb testing. And when it comes to Godzilla, I like the way they incorporated some aspects of the original series into this guy's arsenal. Like, Godzilla can feed on radiation to heal and to basically just for nourishment, and that kind of plays a big part in the story. After Godzilla is defeated, he has to retreat back to his home and feed on the radiation that's present there. And sometime later in the movie, he turns into Fire Godzilla. I'm not sure what the official name is, but then he starts using that pulse, a weapon he didn't have in the 2014 Godzilla, but he had used a lot throughout the original Japanese movie series. And to see it used in this movie and to see how it was used, it was pretty cool. And there's some little detail when you're in Monarch's headquarters and they go through like the maps and the locations of the different Titans which are scattered out the world. They all have like their scientific nicknames. What was it like? It was like Titanus Gojira. Like, they actually used the Japanese names for it. Like, so Titanus Gojira, Titanus Ghidorah, and Titanus Mothra. Like, they actually use a Japanese pronunciation. However, this is a little picking detail here, but, you know, they also use Titanus Rodan, but if they were to have gone full Japanese pronunciation, they should have used Titanus Radon, because for those of you guys don't know, Rodan's name originally in Japan was Radon, not Rodan, but it was changed to Rodan in the English version. And there's another throwback to the original 1954 Godzilla movie in the form of a weapon that the military deploys against Godzilla. Now I'm kind of iffy with this because it's obvious the way they brought it in. They brought it in as a callback to the original movie, but this weapon is called an oxygen destroyer, which is the weapon that disposed of the original Godzilla in the original movie. And it's utilized here for the exact same purpose, but it's more of a missile than a bomb of sorts. It was kind of more like a bomb, at least that's the way it felt like. But here it was a missile, and I'm kind of iffy with this because they dropped it in with any kind of buildup in the story. But, it did serve its purpose. And when it comes to the characters, Dr. Serizawa, who's played by Watanabe Ken, he is an obvious callback to the original Dr. Serizawa, who was the hero of the original 1954 Godzilla movie. And the way he goes out in this movie, it's almost a copy of how it was in the original Godzilla movie. Granted, you had the roles kind of reversed in the original Godzilla movie. He sets off his oxygen destroyer and stays behind to not only make sure Godzilla is taken care of, but also to ensure that the designs of his oxygen destroyer creation don't end up in the wrong hands, because pretty much the only lasting notes of the oxygen destroyer was in his mind. But here in King of the Monsters, he also deploys a weapon to attack Godzilla, but it's not for the purpose of killing him. It's for the purpose of helping him regenerate. And before he goes and the bomb detonates, he says, farewell, my old friend. And that whole entire scene was great. It was so good. And you ever notice that Chinese actress Zhang Zi, she plays two characters in this movie, and they're twins, and they also come from they're not the only twins in their family line. They actually come from a long line of twins, each of which have served Monarch. That was an obvious callback to the Shobijin, who were the pair of twin fairies who served and protected Mothra throughout each of Mothra's appearances in the Japanese franchise. And of course, the ending when you have the severed head of King Ghidorah. I honestly think if they ever bring back King Ghidorah into a future installment in this movie series, they're gonna bring Mecha King Ghidorah, and I absolutely cannot wait for that. And one last thing, I'm kind of happy they decided to do it, but I'm kind of sad at the same time, is that they didn't include any of the original roars of Ghidorah, Rodan, or Mothra, and decided to implement new roars for these creatures. And what saddens me is that I grew up with those roars in the original series, but I'm fine with the choice that they made, because so long as we got Godzilla's roar, I think that's really the main thing that they needed to implement, which they did. But anyway, yes, I hope you enjoyed those Easter eggs and callbacks. If you guys know any more, or if you guys want to point out anything I've mistaken, please feel free to leave a comment below and let me know. But yes, those are my thoughts on Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Please let me know what you guys thought in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. And if you really dig my content, please know that you can support Eiga-Man Ray from Patreon from as little as $1. And yeah, that's about it for me, guys. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all again in the next video. Take it easy.